What's up? What's happening? Welcome in on a Monday to the Hoffman Show. It's the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Hey, Internet. Anthony, say hi, Internet. Hey, he's waving. Now say hi to the radio audience with your voice.
Hey, what's up, Murray?
All right. It's us. We're here. We're going to do a lot of NBA Finals stuff today. We're going to talk about this kind of crazy Desmond Bane trade that happened over the weekend. Not just like we're not going to do a big Orlando Magic breakdown, but we're going to talk about like kind of what it means in the larger context of the NBA. Tim Bontempts will talk about both of those with us coming up at 5 o'clock from ESPN. We'll also do a little Commanders at 5:30. John Keim wrote an article on something I've been thinking about anyway, which is always nice. John and I don't even think talked about this one. Sometimes we're talking about stuff, and then one of the folks that writes will write something. I'm like, oh, I guess I was a trial balloon for that article. This wasn't one of those. John just wrote about the Commanders' D-line. Or we could do Linnell's show from Friday, Anthony, because he left his rundown up. Segment 1.
Is this the Laramie Tunsil stuff?
No, segment 1, this. Segment 2, that. Segment 3, this. It's all laid out. It's 12 segments. That's what we got on our show. So we could.
I mean, you might have something good on there.
Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I had to close out of his notes to get over to my profile in the computer here. So we are going to go ahead and do our show. I will say, the last thing I'll mention on our show, 6 o'clock today, Toby Altizer is going to join us. These Davey Martinez comments. Whoo, buddy. They're not good. Not good, Davey. I kind of want to do more on him. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, should we just start there? No, we're going to start with the NBA Finals, which are now tied at 2. They resume tonight with Game 5. Obviously, a critically important game. There are only 3 games left at max. They're all critically important. What's at stake tonight? It's Game 5 of the NBA Finals, and it's tied at 2. What, you need me to explain this to you like you're 5? No, it's Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And before we get to Game 5, just going to look back at Game 4 and some of the interesting things. And I feel like that was a perfectly fitting game for the series, Anthony, in that it was really, really close. It felt like for long stretches one team was playing better, but then you look at the score and you're like, that's not as big as it should be in terms of the deficit. And I think that was the weird thing was Oklahoma City ultimately hit 3 threes in the entire game. And it felt like they couldn't do a whole lot offensively. It felt like Indiana was dominating. That building was on fire. And then I looked out at the scoreboard, and Indy's leading by like 2 or 3. And obviously they had the stretch in the third quarter where they got it up to 10. But that felt like it should have been 20 based off how the rest of the game had gone. And I think that's the thing that's kind of wild about this series is these two teams are both fairly evenly matched and stylistically matched, that it just feels like no team, except for Oklahoma City in Game 2, where Indiana couldn't hit anything, and they cranked the defense all the way up. It just feels like neither team can have these huge runs that we see in NBA games, and that's what you want in the finals, right? What makes regular season basketball is teams will make these huge runs, and like you can be close and kind of play it pretty even for 40 minutes, but eventually one team's going to make a run the other team doesn't really respond from, and then you get some pretty wide margins, and that's that. If your team can stack a couple of mini runs together, and all of a sudden it's a 20-point win. I mean, and even in Game 2, we talked about this, like Oklahoma City went on one run in the second quarter. It was a 17-2 run, which is forever for some reason apparently seared into my brain. But they went into the 17-2 run, and they wound up winning by 16. They were dead even for the other 43 minutes of the game. It was this 5-ish minute, maybe it was longer than that, I have to go back and check, but 5-ish minute, 17-2 run in the second quarter. And other than that, they're mostly trading baskets. The lead never ballooned up to 25. It never got down below like 12. It was just kind of in that like 13 to 20 type of range. In a game, you win by like 15 points. And so I think that's the like what this series was the other night too, is Indiana feels like they're making a couple of extra plays, but then have a turnover and OKC would get a run out. And okay, well now all of a sudden it's back to a 4-point game. And Indiana's inability to pull away despite feeling like they were playing better left them vulnerable. And then you get the chaos at the end, which I know is part of what you want to talk about, is potentially Scott Foster induced chaos at the end. But what do you think about the non Foster minutes, if you will?
I mean, I think the point you just made in terms of Indiana not capitalizing on the moments in the games, the end of the third, and even the start of the fourth, those shots that you get, like usually we're seeing them hit these shots because they're not as tired. They still got their legs and stuff, under them, and they're capable to, be in rhythm and hit those shots. But missing wide open shots, like looks that you rarely even get against a team like Oklahoma City, just because of how defensively sound they are. Like, you got to capitalize on those moments, and they failed to do that. But also salute to the Thunder, for sticking with things and persevering, trying to just keep the game close. Because again, I felt as though the Pacers had a lot of the momentum. They had the home crowd behind them. They were winning. They had a lead, and it seemed to me that this game was gonna they were gonna keep it fairly close, and then the Pacers were gonna pull away in the end. And every time the Thunder just kept chipping away, and Shea, he finally got it going a little bit. He started getting to the free throw line, and I think that's more so like how the Thunder operate. Like, once their fearless leader gets going,
Yeah.
because I think he only had 14 points like halfway through the third or something like that. And then after that,
he definitely
just poured it on.
He definitely got going late. He definitely got going at the free throw line. But I think like the first quarter is a great example of this, right? I think Siakam had 5 steals in the first quarter?
Yeah.
Whatever the number was. I know he had 5 for most of the game. And there was the great stat they had, like, ninth player in finals history to have like 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals, whatever the combo of stuff was. But it was 20 points and 5 steals were like, kind of like the big ones. And he's got all these steals. Halliburton comes out pretty aggressive. He's got like 4 or 5 assists in the first quarter. Siakam's aggressive. They're hitting shots. They're doing all this stuff. Their defense is, they're pressing. Shea's not even bringing the ball up. He's not even bothering. He's barely involved at all offensively. The score at the end of the first quarter was 35-34 Indiana. And you're just like, man, that's a lot of effort and a lot of stuff that's gone right for you to be up by a point. And there's been points in this series where it's felt the other way, where OKC's feels like they're forcing them. I mean, game 1, OKC forced 1 billion turnovers, and all of a sudden Indiana's kind of floating around. And you're like, what are you doing here? Why are you still floating around? Don't you know how this goes? This is Oklahoma City Thunder. They win by double digits every game. That's what they do. Next thing you know, Tyrese Halliburton hits a shot with 0.3 seconds to go, gives Indiana their first and only lead of the game, but it's the only one that mattered because it was the final score. And that's been this series. And so we can get into, we will in a second, some of the stuff that happens late in this game. But ultimately, I think Indiana loses it by not taking advantage of, Obi Toppin has a really nice night. Siakam's got a great night. Halliburton has a little bit, I think they need more from him scoring-wise, as we've talked about, but has generally a pretty solid day. But at the end of the third quarter, they started to miss a bunch of shots, like open shots. Miles Turner is probably the worst. Like, he's 0 of 6 from 3 in this game, and they miss some shots. Siakam misses, there's like a challenge 3 that he has, but one that he's been hitting. Halliburton misses a couple. Like, you just start missing some shots. And then fourth quarter, Oklahoma City turns the defense up to 1 million, and then things get crazy at the end. That's where we'll go next. We'll talk about the ending, all the officiating stuff that everyone's whining about. I will tell you now, I don't think it's as valid as some others, but I'm willing to hear arguments. 301-230-0980 if you want to get in on the discussion. And we're talking NBA Finals with you here on The Hoffman Show. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. YouTube, you can watch us live streaming every single day, all 3 hours. NBA Finals Game 5 tonight. Talking about Game 4 now, which was an Oklahoma City win, thanks in large part to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Also the defense of Lou Dort. Good gracious, what he did to Halliburton there in the second half especially. That contributes to the series being tied at 2, going back to OKC. But, Anthony, as tends to happen when Scott Foster officiates an NBA Finals game, people want to talk about Scott Foster. Now, I will be honest with the audience, as I was with you. I, in a stunning turn of events, did not watch the full game Friday night because it went late. And, you'd be like, come on, Craig, on a Friday night, you're really not staying up to watch an NBA Finals game? On a Finals that is awesome, that you really are interested in and into? I coach a very early class on Saturday morning. I didn't get to make that decision. It's just when we could do it. And so I actually wake up earlier on Saturdays than I do during the week. Benefits of having a 4 p.m. show in the afternoon. So, I didn't watch this game, the second half of this game. Well, I obviously knew what happened all weekend. I actually didn't watch the game until this morning. And I was in the middle of, the third quarter, and we were texting, and you're like, man, Scott Foster. And I'm like, I ain't seen anything yet. Keep watching. I'm pretty deep into it before I'm like, this might be what people are talking about. What's the beef with Scott Foster in this game? I want to hear it from you. I heard a little bit in Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe's recap pod what some of Bill's gripes were. But
so Bill was upset too.
Yeah, Bill Simmons, that's his jam. He loves to complain about especially Scott Foster. But and often I agree, to be fair. This one didn't seem as egregious to me, but there were some things. What you look at the end of this game and the officiating. What made you so and the internet so irate?
I mean, again, everything seemed to be trending towards a Pacers win. They had a huge lead in the fourth. Granted, they weren't hitting their shots, but in order to make it close, Shai finally started getting to the free throw line. Craig, through 2.5 quarters, Shai had 0 free throw attempts. I was so surprised. I'm like, and I had texted Zaire because he was at the game. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Shai, he hasn't shot a free throw this entire game. They're allowing the guys to play. And then next thing you know, here comes Shai, getting all these calls. And, granted, some of them were fouls, but I feel like the one against Lou Dort, when he gets a steal on Tyrese Halliburton, he clearly pushes Tyrese. And you probably haven't seen the angle, but the angle that I saw, he clearly pushes him. And it's a foul in my eyes, but they don't call it. And then at the end of the game, Shai pushes off, he travels, and then he also, makes the shot. So I think 2 big plays in the game that go against Indiana that goes in the Thunder's favor. And it just, every time Scott Foster's in one of these situations, it always ends up bad for, whatever team is, winning or, I don't know. He always seems to, make the game or the series that much closer because of his impact on the game. That's my beef with him.
So, I will say in the first half, when they called that foul, the flagrant on
Obi Toppin? Yeah, come on, dude.
That was an egregiously bad call.
That wasn't a flagrant, right?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm actually watching because I went to X and searched, or went to Twitter and searched. I was like, Lou Dort fouls Scott Foster. And there's actually nothing that pops up, but that popped back up, and I was reminded how egregious that one. And I love that he got on the PA and was like, it's there's a clear wind up and follow through, and I'm like, there's clearly neither. There's no wind up, and then there's a play on the ball, which I realize is not inherently, a yes or no, but there's a play on the ball. There's a huge body foul. It's just it's very stupid. Very, very bad call. But the SGA push-off one, I don't know. Here, let me see. That's a foul on Dort. That's a bad miss. But, it's also his hands are kind of on him. versus versus like some huge push. I don't think that one's insane. It's a missed call. It's bad. The SGA one, it's a push off. Yes. It's also a hand check on Neesmith. And depending on what you define as the gather, it's not a walk. So I could see where you'd be like, yeah, that was a walk, because he's trying to gather himself as opposed to the gather, which is like an official term in the NBA rulebook. And that one just doesn't bother me. That one's kind of playoff basketball. I think the valid gripes with the game are the inconsistency from beginning to end in terms of what was allowed, where you were allowing certain stuff earlier. Now you're calling some more touch fouls. There's a ton of free throws in the game. But I also just think like the game got more physical as it went. And I don't look at a ton of those calls. Like, yeah, those are two ones that you want to call them missed calls. Fine. But like, how many of the times the SGA went to the line were they incorrectly called? Neesmith kept fouling him. Stop fouling him. Like that, what changed wasn't that Scott Foster decided it was time to call fouls. What changed is the Oklahoma City Thunder went to a small pick and roll, got Andrew Nembhard off of SGA finally. For some reason, SGA is perfectly fine going against Aaron Neesmith, who, by the way, remember in the last round, Neesmith murdered Jalen Brunson. Like that was the end of the Knicks. Neesmith on Brunson. This round, it's Nembhard on SGA. Different guys like different styles. The long friendship of Nembhard and SGA, probably something where SGA or Nembhard knows all SGA's moves. Like whatever the reason is, that's what changed. The game changed. I don't think there was like this huge officiating change. Things were physical. It's a finals game. They called enough to keep it under control. Neesmith couldn't keep his hands out of the freaking cookie jar. He fouled out because he committed fouls. And that's why SGA kept going to the free throw line. The plays late. Like Mathurin, I hate that those calls happen, but they're fouls. Like that's why Mathurin doesn't close games for them. He's only in there because Neesmith fouls out. And so if all you want to do is look at the stats and be like, this is crazy, I would tell you needed to watch the game, because I as a neutral observer watching that game, never once went, oh, Scott Foster's ruining it. And I think he called stuff both ways. So it's not like he tilted the officiating obscenely one way or the other. In OKC turned their defense up. Indiana stopped hitting shots. Oklahoma City found something offensively with the small pick and roll, and they won the game. To me, that's what happened.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, it's just interesting that Scott Foster is always at the center of a lot of these, game discussions and calls. Like he's the common denominator in a lot of it. And in a game, again, where it seemed like Indy was going to go up 3-1.
But why did they not? Was it because Scott Foster started calling?
Now, you necessarily can't just blame him, but
then what are we saying?
I just think he had a hand in it. He had a hand in it.
Scott Foster calls a lot of big games because he is, by the NBA system, graded out as a very good official. He also will make sure things don't get out of hand. Certainly, he has had some games where you're like, what in the world are you doing, man? Where like Scott Foster likes attention too much to be a referee. He likes to be involved in the action. He calls a lot of fouls. He's a very tight, he loves to be super oh, we got a block, and it's right there, and it's on the floor. You're like, bro, you are not trying to do it.
He looked excited when Nembhard fouled SGA on the shoulder. All right, bro. Not too much.
But he leaves very little. I think players actually appreciate it because he is very decisive. He's very clear. He communicates a lot with players.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm not going to be like, I hate, let me say this very clearly. I hate that I'm defending Scott Foster, right? Scott Foster has a history of whatever, right? He's been involved in a lot of controversial calls and games, and part of that is because he's calling a lot of games as the head guy. And so he's in a position to do that. Was this game changed dramatically from an Indiana win to an Oklahoma City win by Scott Foster doing anything other than his job or doing something outside of his job? No. He called foul. him calling fouls that Indiana committed is about what Indiana did, not what Scott Foster did.
Yeah.
It's not Scott Foster's job to save the game for Indiana when they stop moving their feet and start grabbing onto SGA. Like, it's not how it goes. So, did they miss a couple? Sure. Did they probably miss a couple the other way at some point in the game? Probably. Did it seem like there was something untoward happening to me? No. But how the game is officiated definitely matters. And the one thing that Simmons said that I thought was correct in terms of how Scott Foster truly impacted the game was because they called a bunch of ticky-tack fouls towards the end, or they seemingly called a bunch of stuff. The game lacked flow. When the game flows, that's in Indiana's favor. But again, I don't think that it was so far out of bounds or that they changed so much that it's something to talk about. I think there were a lot of fouls that happened later in the game as guys got tired in an intense game 4 where there's so much on the line. And Indiana, if they had kept their hands out of the cookie jar, maybe the game would have had more flow and maybe they would have won anyway. Indiana, by the way, undefeated, I think it is, in the playoffs, like 20, or, I guess it would be 20, but it would be like 12 wins when they score over 110 points, 0-6 when they don't. So, flow, pace, those things matter to Indiana. But also, you score more than 110 points, hit more shots, which they failed to do as well. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, we'll discuss the other big story of the NBA weekend. Desmond Bane traded for how many picks? Why, although at first I was like, this is a joke, I actually think it kind of makes sense. We'll get into it next. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Stream it live on YouTube too at the Team 980. So, Anthony, where were you when you found out about the Desmond Bane trade?
Is this Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday morning.
I was actually on my way to my flag football game.
Okay. What was your reaction to the trade?
So I didn't see all of the details until later, I guess later that evening. But I was surprised that, he was getting traded and that the Magic were, was the team he was like headed to. I thought sort of kind of what the Grizzlies had.
Too much. What was your reaction to the amount that was going back to Orlando or from Orlando to Memphis?
Insane.
Yeah,
Insane.
that was my first thought too. The more I've thought about it, the more I kind of get it. And part of that is we have Tim Bontempts coming up at 5:00. Truth be told, I talked to Tim earlier today, so that just was better with his schedule. So Tim was able to talk me into it, which will, if you're listening to the interview, will become quite obvious as you hear Tim's explanation. But I was sitting on my couch, like having a lazy morning, playing some PlayStation, and thing goes off. Oh, Shams alert! Trade. What? How many? Immediately sends off to the group chat. Guys, did you know Desmond Bane is worth 5 first-round picks and 2 rotation players? Ultimately, the return for Desmond Bane, if you did miss it over the weekend, the Grizzlies guard who shot 41% from 3 last year, very, very good player, although never named an all-star. Probably been on the verge of that a couple times when Memphis was really good a couple years ago. But 4 unprotected first-round picks. Cole Anthony, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and a pick swap. So essentially 5 first-rounders, potentially 5 first-rounders, and 2 players who played real minutes for them last year. The thing is, though, KCP did not have a good year, and his contract is significant. So in some ways, it's a salary dump of KCP along with the acquisition for Bane. So you give up something to also unload KCP. It just so happens that it helps make the money work in the trade. Anthony is a expiring deal that they were probably going to trade this summer, in part because he's a good player with really high variance. Some days he's really, really good, and some days you're like, dude, what are we doing? But he's on an expiring deal. That's the contract that had to make the money work. So it's the 2 teams are dealing, and they have to be fairly close on the salary going back and forth this upcoming season. So it kind of works out that he's in it. If you think of it that way, of like this is really closer to 3 first-round picks plus an extra one to unload KCP, then it starts to make a little more sense. Because the idea that you trade 3 first-round picks for Desmond Bane is definitely rich on the idea that he has never been an all-star, right? 3 first-round picks a couple years ago for Pascal Siakam, which is right now everyone's like, that was a great trade for Indiana. That at least Pascal was an all-star. Like Pascal was an all-star pretty consistently. So Pascal Siakam from, let's say, 2018 to 2022 or even 2024, better player than Desmond Bane has been in his career. But Bane is exactly what Orlando needs. A guy who's going to come into one of the better defensive teams in the league last year, continue to play great defense, and they were the worst three-point shooting team in the league. And here's a guy who shoots it at 41%. He's been around, a really, really high-level winner with that Memphis team a couple years ago. He was a huge part of with Ja and Triple J. That ran its course, and we'll see what else. Bontempts and others reporting that there's not really anything else that's probably going to happen in Memphis, but who knows? Apparently, teams are sniffing around on Triple J, and I'm sure teams are sniffing around on Morant as well, seeing if he wants a fresh start and wants to get out of Memphis. But I actually kind of get it for Orlando, and while the price is really, really steep, and we went last year through these kinds of trades and how often they don't work when Mikal Bridges was traded from New York, I do understand it from Orlando's standpoint. Would I want to give up less? Of course. even if I say, hey, these picks are top 10 protected, which I'm hoping to then give them for first-round picks because I have a long competitive window with Paolo Banchero as one of the 5 best players in the league, which he looks like he could be on track to be. But it's a lot, man, for a guy that's never made an all-star team. And even if he's the perfect fit for you, or he better be the perfect fit for you, because if not, you've just locked yourself into mediocrity, which is the worst place you can be in the entire league.
Yeah, when you talk about fit, and we've seen, Alex Caruso get traded last offseason. We've seen Drew Holiday get traded 2 off seasons ago. So when you talk about fit, you need somebody, who's going to be able to gel in, be that third option. They already have Paolo. They have Franz Wagner. Jalen Suggs is, another cornerstone piece that they have. So if they can get Desmond Bane to go in there, be their second or third option and shoot the ball consistently as he's done, the past 3-4 years, I think this is, a trade situation where it could be as valuable as those, role players that we've been seeing, be on championship teams the last couple of years.
And that's the thing, right, is how much is one of those guys work? And I'm sure this is something I'll talk about a lot on the show moving forward because I think I really, really like the concept. You hear about team chemistry a lot, but there's a different word that some in the league and some people around basketball throw around, which is alchemy. And I literally read this section of a book last night, so this is probably some recency bias, but I think it's a really cool concept that goes to exactly what you were just talking about. Alchemy, like chemistry, is like, hey, we have all these things, they come together. How do they work? Do they blow up or do they not? Alchemy is we take these things that exist as they are now and we create something new. And the new thing is better than the old thing. And so if you think about, I'm trying to think of a really great piece. You take, oh my God, what's his name? Derek White. Derek White's a really good player. Really good player. But if he's in San Antonio, like bopping around, you're like, this guy's good, but how good is he? You put him in Boston, and you're like, oh my God, he's the key to a championship. Like what he does to everyone else changes everyone else. Same thing with Drew Holiday. I think you could make this argument about him specifically in Milwaukee with what he brought to that team, right? So there's these certain pieces and these certain amalgamations of pieces that it affects everyone else. And the thing that and basically like the really good line, I got to go back and I need to screenshot this page because there was the way that the author wrote it was so good. But it's basically like I can't be me without this best version of me without you, right? And I think that's what the Magic are counting on with Bane is like, here's a guy that's really good on his own on any team in the NBA. He's gonna shoot 40%. He's gonna play tough defense. But if we surround him with the guys that we have here, that we have all these cutters and these drivers, and we can let him kind of uniquely sit in that role, what that does for him, and I think more importantly, like a guy like Paolo, all of a sudden having a shooter like Bane around him says, we're going to go from a first-round team to a conference finals team. Because that one piece is such a perfect fit and will elevate everything we do that we completely change who we are, which is not a bad thing. They're good, but they need to be better than what they are right now if they're going to get where they want to go.
Yeah, and we've seen, Bane, average 20, and, so I think from that alone, getting more scoring, getting more shooting, and then you also get some experience, because he's been to the playoffs. Granted, this season he didn't have all that good of a playoffs against the Thunder, but again, just putting it all together, I think this could be, something special that they brought down there. Because, again, they're young as hell, Craig. So that's also why I think they don't mind moving off these first-round picks because, again, they're already young. They want to develop some of the guys that they already have in the little bullpen.
They've got the young guys. They've got the star in Banchero. They've got all the pieces. Now it's about getting the right, exact, curated final pieces And those, like, they can't wait for a guy to come in the draft. So what's a 2028 first-round pick to them? What's a 2029 first-round pick to them? Like, that's the thing, is like those guys aren't going to help them win in the Banchero window. And so now they're willing to sacrifice that and say, whatever happens post-Banchero, we'll figure out post-Banchero. But right now, either we're going to win or this isn't going to work. And at that point, you trade Banchero, and that's how you get your assets back for the post-Banchero window. Obviously, they're not thinking about that right now. All right, when we get back, weekend in review, right? We've changed around a million things in this show. I think it's a game of what else happened this weekend next here on the Hoffman Show. But first, a look at what's trending. Hoffman Show, Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I see what you're doing here, Anthony. I was like, we're doing the weekend preview. This song in honor of our good friend, Shannon Harris, and the DC Defenders.
Got that dub, Craig.
They sure did. Congrats to the DC Defenders. Big old win. Did you wind up watching any of it, Anthony?
I did not. I did see a couple of snippets of. I saw it when the game was like not close. I mean, I guess close because by the tail end of the game, it got out of hand. But
it didn't take the tail end of the game.
Yeah,
it was an absolute barn burner, and DC was the one burning the barn, to say the least. 58-34 is the final. By the way, this is our weekend in review, aka what else happened this weekend, and it's brought to you by
nobody, Greg.
Okay. Jordan Ta'amu threw for 390 yards, 4 touchdowns. Defenders almost rushed for 200 yards as well. 58-34, the win over the Michigan Panthers. They had 580 yards of offense. That's a league single game record, and they did it to win a championship. So I had this on a little bit in the background. Like, we were doing some stuff Saturday night, get back. Like, they've already got a little bit of a lead. You know, I'm kind of cleaning up some other stuff. And then by the time I was ready to, like, potentially lock in and watch, if it was a game, they were up like 31-14. And it was going in at halftime. They dump trucked them.
Yeah, wasn't good.
I mean, was good. Was great.
No. Oh, it was definitely good for us.
Not good in terms of competitive game, though.
No, I think Michigan or the state of Michigan might have gripes with us. You know, the Commanders go in there, you know, whoop some butt, and then you have the DC Defenders go in there and whoop some butt too.
So sorry about it. Hate to see it. This is all just revenge for making me walk to that Uber at the draft a couple years ago.
There it is.
You know, sometimes the universe has a way of looking out. Got some other questions about some things going on in the universe, but we'll leave those between me and the universe, you know?
Yeah.
Things didn't go so great for some other sports teams from the district this weekend. It was a bad weekend for the girls, Anthony. It was a bad weekend for both the Mystics and the Spirit. The Mystics, talk about getting your butts handed to you in the first half. Oh, that was an ouchie. Alicia Gray for the Atlanta Dream, 19 points in the first half alone. The Mystics, I mean, it wasn't the worst loss in the WNBA this season. I guess that's the nicest thing I can say about it from the Washington side of things. There was that Sky Liberty game where I think it was 102-52 or something like that.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, Alicia Gray just went absolutely bananas. In 29 minutes, she had 32 points, 6 of 9 from 3, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, another 14 points, including 4 threes from Ryan Howard. Naz Hillman had 10 off the bench. But the other side of that is the Mystics from the field shot 29.5%, Anthony. 29.5% from the field. Just an abysmal shooting day. The one solo highlight for Washington was the Shakira Austin block on Brittany Griner, which resulted in a friendly shove from Griner to Austin. That was a pretty funny moment between the youngster and the vet. But, yeah, man, Sony had 10 thanks to 6 of 7 from the free throw line, but she was only 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3. And when I say she had 10, she was the leading scorer. No one else in double figures, just 3 of 17 from 3. They also shot 17 of 23 from the line. It was like literally just a lid on the bucket. Brutal day at the office. I don't know what else to tell you, man. That was just, like, if anything, it's one of those where if you're Sidney Johnson, you get in the locker room and you go, that sucked. Let's never talk about it again. See you for practice tomorrow. I don't think there's anything that you have to say beyond that.
Was that their first game back, though, after like a week hiatus?
It was a week off, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that probably has something to do with it, but I would have expected them to come out, you know, with a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
But
should have been reared up, ready to play.
Yeah.
They just forgot how to shoot, apparently. Just a bad day. They'll next face off tomorrow against the Chicago Sky and Angel Reese, who Reese, a nice triple-double over the weekend as the Sky finally got a win. But Mystic Sky tomorrow night at Wintrust Arena in Chicago. As for the Spirit this weekend, they let in a goal about midway through the first half. Really nice play by Jessie Fleming, who is a constant thorn in the side. No pun intended. She's a Portland thorn. But also great Canadian international. And their rookie, Kaya Hanks, puts one home. Hanks, unfortunately, got hurt later in that first half. And Washington just had nothing on attack all day. Just super toothless. Couldn't get anything going. Couldn't get their best players on the ball. Just oddly ineffective. And ultimately, Portland was able to get a second late in the game. But you gotta be able to have something going both ways, and otherwise this is how it's going to go. And Spirit, after a flawless start to the season on the road, 5-0-0, and a rough start at home, their last two have inverted that. Their best performance of the season probably was their last home game against North Carolina last weekend, and then this past weekend, one of their worst, if not their single worst performance of the year in terms of 90 minutes of subpar play. And that's that. They got one more game before the international. I think one more game. Might have two before the international break. So they're back in action this weekend. All right. That's what else happened this weekend. Anything else, Anthony, that we want to touch on? Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about Caitlin Clark's return later on in the show. Anything else that we need to?
The Nats have officially lost 8 straight after they lost they got swept by the Marlins, the worst team in the MLB.
Really bad. Well, now they got the Rockies, the other worst team in the MLB. And I think actually the Rockies are even worse than the Marlins. The Rockies are barely a major league team. So they're in town. We're talk about that with Toby Altizer later on in the show. So that's going to get between the losing streak, Brady House getting the call up, and Davies' comments. That's going to get its own segment today. So Nationals, you want more attention? So sorry, you're going to get it. That's coming up at 6 o'clock. 5:30, going to talk about Commanders and have they done enough on their defensive line? Interesting article from John Keim at ESPN. But coming up next, John's colleague at ESPN, Tim Bontempts, with us talking NBA Finals and this big old Desmond Bane trade. Also, latest on Kevin Durant here on the Team 980. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. 5:30, we'll talk a little Commanders, discuss the defensive line. John Keim wrote an article about asking the question, have they done enough to be able to deal with the Eagles? Has anyone done enough to be able to deal with the Eagles? We'll look at it through that Commanders lens and the Commanders D-line through that lens coming up at 5:30. Right now, though, top story of the day, 5 o'clock. You know the deal. It's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My
Story of the day is the NBA Finals tonight, but we're going to put that on the back burner for a second as we welcome in Tim Bontempts from ESPN. Of course, the years wrote for the Washington Post as well. Tim, welcome back. Appreciate your time as always, sir.
Hey, great to talk to you, Craig. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Although I'm confused, and you're someone that I want to try to unconfuse myself with, or we're just going to be confused together because this Desmond Bain trade over the weekend, you had a great write-up on a bunch of different angles of this on ESPN.com, and I'll just start here, man. Like, my reaction to this was, you've got to be kidding me. In terms of the return that they got for Desmond Bain, them, of course, being the Memphis Grizzlies, who get a bunch of unprotected first-round picks, 2 rotation players, and a pick swap for Desmond Bain. And this is a year after Mikal Bridges, like, better player than Bain. Is this just what, like, decent players in the league cost now, or is the reaction around the league, like, is there confusion around the league in terms of what the market is for a player on the trade market?
I mean, I think you have to sort of look at these situations individually, right? So if you go back to the Mikal Bridges trade last year, he was a very good player on a very good value contract, right? And so he slotted right into New York's salary structure where they could make a trade for basically only sending out Bojan Bogdanovic, who has a potential, maybe a career-ending injury during the playoffs. And so they can add a really good player to their roster without sacrificing anything off their current roster, right? Now, was that a good value proposition long-term? That's a much different conversation to have. But that is the thinking that went into that deal, right? This Desmond Bain trade is a similar sort of deal. You look at it for Orlando, this is a team that was dead last in three-point shooting, had very little offensive creation, desperately needed a perimeter scorer and shooter. Desmond Bain's a 41% three-point shooter for his career. He can play point. He's a great guy. He can also is a very credible defender, really strong, rugged defender. So he slots into what has been one of the best defensive teams in the league and gives them that offensive weapon that they need without sacrificing any defense. So from a fit standpoint, he's a great fit on a long-term deal that they can slot in and have him as part of this core going forward. So Orlando, a team that has been extraordinarily conservative with their draft picks, has not gone in for anybody, identified Desmond Bain as the player they wanted to go get, and went and got him, right? And got a guy who's, I think, 26, 27, like in his prime, going to be right in line with Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner going forward. Now, will that work out long-term? I think it's going to remain to be seen. And I think you can look at the Indiana Pacers as the upside of this deal, right? A year and a half ago, the Pacers traded for Pascal Siakam. I think they traded 3 firsts in a swap.
Yep, it was 3.
Just 3 firsts. Yeah. Right. So that was a trade at the time that people said, that's a lot of firsts to give up for Pascal Siakam to then give him a max contract. How is this going to go? Is this really a deal you make if you're Indiana, right? Pacers made the conference finals last year. They're 2 wins away from a title this year. There's nobody saying anything other than that was an amazing trade for the Pacers, right? It leveled that team up and gave them a chance to compete for a title. Desmond Bain has the ability to potentially be that same kind of fit for Orlando. Or, to your point, Craig, if you go back to the Mikal Bridges deal, if Orlando, which hasn't got out of the first round of the playoffs in 15 years, by the way, is a first round and out team next year, or never gets out of the second round the next couple of years, then you're going to look at it and say, well, this maybe is more like the Mikal Bridges trade where, yes, the Knicks made the conference finals, but they gave up all this stuff. They don't really have a way to get better. and they feel like a team that's sort of maxed out in terms of their overall ceiling, right? So I think only time will tell about where the fit of this trade is and where it lands in terms of whether it was the right thing to do long term or not. But what I think you do have to do is in each of these instances, whether it's the Rudy Gobert trade or the Donovan Mitchell trade or the Mikal Bridges trade or this trade or the Siakam trade, you have to sort of look at it through the prism of the specific team and the specific player that's involved and the motivations that go into why the deal is made. And it's why you have sort of these wildly varying value structures on a lot of these different trades, where a guy like Desmond Bane goes for 4 firsts in a swap, who is a very good player but hasn't made an all-star team yet. And Kevin Durant, who we'll probably talk about next, is probably not going to go for a package that looks like that, despite being Kevin Durant, right? For a whole other set of reasons.
Right. Yeah, I definitely want to get to the Durant piece in a second and what this means for the market. This Tim Bontempts is with us, and he wrote about all this again at ESPN.com. I guess, like, I hear you, and I think you make a great point in terms of the fit with Bane. And the Siakam piece was something I thought of as well. Like, he is the perfect fit. If you were to identify who could help the Orlando Magic, Desmond Bane would be one of the top names you would think of the archetype of player they needed. I guess where I struggle with this, Tim, is if I had asked you on Saturday, the day before this trade, hey, Desmond Bane is going to get traded tomorrow. What's the return? I don't think you would have said 4 first-round picks, a pick swap, plus 2 rotation players. And by the way, KCP, a champion who brought some real veteran leadership to that team. And
see, not to interrupt, Craig, but this is the part of the calculus of the trade, right? Like, to say that Cole Anthony and KCP are rotation players is a little strong, right? Cole Anthony is a okay backup guard who's on an expiring contract and is in the deal to make the money work. And frankly, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a guy who is on a negative contract after a rough year last year, and it was part of the return in this trade is getting off of KCP's money.
So you almost look at that as like they're getting like the extra first round, like it's almost like it's 2 first rounders plus a 2 first rounder penalty, 1 for each of those guys.
Or maybe, I mean, more like probably 3 and 1. Like, Cole Anthony isn't negative. He's just a neutral. Like, he's just an expiring deal to make the money work. You could probably flip him for a second or something. But really, this is a combination of the Magic getting a player who perfectly fits their team while also moving on from a guy in KCP that was not a good fit last year and was not on a contract that was seen as a value one.
Got it.
Around the league with the way he played. Which is, again, is why deals, it's not like there's a, you know, like the NFL famously has the trade value chart for the draft, right? Where it's like you can say, like, if you want to trade for the number 1 pick and it's like 1,000 points or whatever, you give this combination of stuff to get to the 1,000 points. It doesn't really work like that with these things because there's so many different variables at play. And I'm not sitting here saying that, you know, there are plenty of people in the league who agree with you and think that the Magic gave up too much, and they may have. But they also, the East is wide open in the wake of Jason Tatum's torn Achilles. And if the Orlando Magic are in the conference finals next year and have a chance to make the finals, and Desmond Bane is scoring 22 a game in the playoffs and hitting 40% from 3, it's going to be hard to look at that trade and say it didn't work, you know? And like, that's where, to your point, they identified a guy who fit their team. They aggressively went and got him, and they did so. And frankly, the most surprising thing about it is that the Orlando Magic, a team that hadn't actively acquired a player in a trade, as in they targeted a player and got him back in a deal. Not that they didn't get him as part of a deal, setting out a veteran player for assets. The last time they did that was when they traded for Markelle Fultz in February 2019.
Wow.
So this is not a team that has been aggressively trying to pursue players in trade over the past 6.5 years. So the most surprising thing about this was not even that 4 picks were traded for Desmond Bane. It was that the Orlando Magic were the ones trading the 4 picks for him.
Right.
But they talked about after the season, their 3-point shooting stunk. They had to go get some shooting. They had to get some playmaking. Desmond Bane became available. They identified him, and they went and got him.
No, that when you put it that way, it makes a lot more sense for sure. And obviously the the correct answer ultimately is like, well, if there was another team that was willing to give similar or just a little bit less, and this is what got it done, like that, the mark that is ultimately, and just bring us to the Kevin Durant piece of I'm sure there are, now what, 4 teams really that we're looking at, the 3 that your colleague Shams Charania reported that Durant would definitely sign an extension with on Saturday night, plus the Minnesota Timberwolves are still poking around as well, and we could see how that potentially goes. They've all probably got different on what Kevin Durant is worth at 37 years old. What's the latest you're hearing on what Durant wants, how much that matters, and then ultimately the return that Phoenix might get here?
I mean, it matters to some degree, but Phoenix has, I think, made it clear that they're going to make the best deal they can make. And, it's not like Kevin's going to end up in a bad situation. Well, teams that are trying to trade for him are good teams, or are going to be good teams in San Antonio's case, most likely. And I think the question just becomes who's going to be the most motivated to try to get a deal done, and will they give enough that, especially in light of this Bane trade, will Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, decide it's enough to send Kevin Durant packing? I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And I think we'll know between now and the draft where this is going to land. And, like I wrote in that piece, I think, we're going to see a trade happen. If it does, it probably isn't going to be as much as what Memphis just got for Desmond Bane. And I think, the Suns have to sort of, either wrap their heads around that and make the best deal they can make, or decide they've got to try to make things work with Kevin going forward. And, it's going to be interesting to see where that lands. So I would think with all the chatter that's gone on and where they are at on the trade, I think the expectation will be that they're going to, get this thing over the finish line and send Kevin elsewhere and start to reorient the roster after what's been a pretty failed experiment the last couple of years.
Of course, that all started with the Bradley Beal trade. Back to the home team. Just real quick, Tim, I'm sure that you haven't done a ton of Wizards recon. You're covering the NBA Finals actively and Kevin Durant thing. And while we are hoping the Wizards can be good in in a couple of years, really, we know it's a long rebuild. But are there pieces on this team, someone like Jordan Poole, Marcus Smart, Corey Kispert, that you think teams that are in contention might be targeting, especially, and I want to in the piece, because of the fact that the Nets are basically the only team with functional cap space, that, July 25th, 10 days or so from now, is going to be 9 days from now, is going to be, or is it June 25th day, is going to be the most of the offseason. Do you think that, like the Denny Advia trade that seemingly came out of nowhere last year for Washington, that there are some potential targets on this Wizards team, and then we can get to the finals after that?
I think I would guess, most of the most valuable pieces on the Wizards are, their young core that isn't, certainly going anywhere, right? So, you could maybe see some of those guys flying around, particularly, like Smart's expiring. Do they get an asset to send him out and take on some longer term money, maybe from somebody? Sure. But generally, I think you're going to see the Wizards, doing what they have been doing, which is just trying to turn more assets and try to land another, guy or two in this draft that can be part of this young core moving forward, is to try to slowly build this thing up into a contending team in Washington. All
right. So the contending teams for now, there are 2, Indiana, Oklahoma City. You're there in Oklahoma City. Of course, ESPN, ABC it there. We had our guy Kesty on. If you're driving around ESPN radio, you can catch it there too. So now all your bosses are happy, Tim, that I did the requisite promos. The fourth quarter the other night, I think is such it's such a encapsulation of what this series has been, which is, Indiana's playing really hard, and it seems like and the building feels a certain way, the way it's coming through on television. You can tell me your experience from being there, and then you look at the scoreboard and you're like, oh, the Thunder are right there. Indiana misses a bunch of shots at the start of that quarter. SGA gets going. There's the fouls. He hits a bunch. Next thing you know, we're tied at 2. I feel like there's other games in this series where Oklahoma City's had runs like that, but Indiana is right there. Being in the building, seeing it up close, talking to the participants. Does this series feel as even as that? We're, watching it on TV. Obviously, it's 2-2. Do these 2 teams feel as equal when you're experiencing this in person? And do they feel as equal to each other when you're talking to these participants, doing all your reporting?
I mean, I think the Thunder are the better team, but Indiana has once again proven they're an extraordinarily difficult team to play, and I've just been extraordinarily impressed by the way the Pacers have been able to bend teams to their will throughout the playoffs. It's been really awesome to watch them just slowly kind of grind one team after another down all the way through, and it's put them in a situation where they have they got a real live shot, obviously, in the series to win 2 out of the next 3 and get the franchise's first NBA championship. But I do think at the same time that Game 4 really felt like a missed opportunity. I mean, they dominated the game. They were plus 24 at the three-point line. The Thunder couldn't make a three. They couldn't make a play. They could hardly make a pass for a lot of the game. And the Pacers just didn't let them hang around and let them hang around and let them hang around. And Jalen Williams, who has, gotten some questions during these playoffs about how he formed at different points, had the game of his life in the biggest game of his life. And those guys got it to a point where the MVP of the league could deliver in the final 5 minutes, and he did just that. And, they were in a similar situation, down 2-1 in Denver in Game 4 against the inevitable force that is Nikola Jokic, and they escaped from that game. And they were down 7 at the start of the fourth quarter in this Game 4 the other night against a really good Indiana team at home with not a lot going in OKC's direction, and they find a way to get it done. And if they can get 2 out of 3 wins here over the next week, it's going to be those 24 minutes in what's been an all-time great season. 7th most win, tied for, I think, the 7th most wins in the history of the league with 68 in the regular season, record-setting point differential, pretty dominant overall playoff run. It's a reminder that even for great teams like that, these things often come down to a couple lucky breaks here and there, even for really good teams. And, if the Thunder can get this thing done, it's going to be those two games that people are thinking back on. It's going to be those 2 fourth quarters that could very well be the difference.
When you look at Halliburton in Game 4, like, he was assertive and aggressive in certain ways. He's only got 18 points, and I think there's ways for him to take some shots where he takes passes, kind of that mid-range where, maybe against 28, other teams, like, that's the where against this team, the way that Oklahoma City scrambles and rotates, that taking a pull-up 2 is actually not the worst shot. But especially, Tim, for tonight, for Halliburton on the road, where we see it all the time in the playoffs, role players play better at home versus on the road. They get the 17 points from Toppin in that Game 4 loss, so that feels like a big part of the wasted opportunity. Is there a way that Indiana wins tonight if Halliburton is not to score? And I'm going to specify to score there as opposed to just a generic aggressive.
I mean, it's possible because, they did win Game 1 here within scoring like 14, but, look, I believe they're 33-4 when he scores at least 20 in a game, and they're 20-1 when he has at least 20 and 10 in a game, right? So, like, when he's aggressive scoring the ball, they're a dramatically different team. And can he deliver that kind of performance on the road? He's had some great performances at home, particularly in the last couple rounds of the playoffs. He has not had a performance like that on the road in a while. So, what's that going to look like? What can he do? What's the biggest game of his career? But look, I think the biggest thing to watch to me is the 3-point line. The Thunder are a great team, but they can go through stretches where they really don't hit anything, and they could really struggle to hit shots. And the Pacers, again, they were plus 24 in Game 4. They were plus 21 in Game 1. I think if they're over, if they're plus 20 or better, plus 21 or better, I guess, from 3 in these games, they're going to feel like they have a chance to win. If it's I know they won Game 3, making 1 less 3 than OKC. That does not, to me, feel sustainable, particularly on the road. Like, I think they've got to hit 16, 18, 23s, and they've got to hold OKC down. And if they do, and if Halliburton can get going, which if they hit that many threes, he's probably going to get going to some degree, they'll give themselves a chance to get this win and send the series back to Indy for Game 6 with a chance to close it out.
Game 5 tonight, going to be a lot of fun to watch. Tim Bontempts is there. All the coverage from him, ESPN Television, ESPN.com. Tim, always appreciate your time, sir, and enjoy the game tonight.
Awesome. Thanks.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.
Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Thanks again to Tim Bontempts for joining us, talking NBA Finals. We'll do more on that in an hour. Our preview of Game 5. We still have Toby Altizer coming up at 6 o'clock to talk Nationals because there is a lot going on in Nats land. But right now, Anthony, a little Commanders here on a Monday. And John Keim wrote a piece for ESPN.com where he asked what is a fairly simple question. Have the Commanders done enough on their defensive line to stop the Eagles? Obviously, stopping the run in general was a problem for them last year. One of the stats that's been floating around there, Keim has it in this piece as well. Of the top 10 teams against the run last season, 9 made the postseason. Of the bottom 10, only Washington reached the playoffs. So how bad were the numbers, specifically against Philly? In 3 games versus Washington, Saquon Barkley alone, nevertheless, Jalen Hurts as a running quarterback or any of the other backs, ran for 414 yards, 7 touchdowns, and averaged 5.9 a carry. The Eagles as a team topped 200 rushing yards each of those 3 games. They also struggled specifically against heavier formations. Keim had these numbers in his piece as well at ESPN.com. Washington allowed 5.4 yards per carry when facing 2 or 3 tight end sets. However, in the past 8 games, or the last 8 games of the season, including the 3 postseason contests, the Commanders allowed 7.2 yards per rush versus those formations. And Philly specifically ran the ball 59 times out of 12 or 13 personnel. I guess I should say 2 or 3 tight ends. I guess they could have had 2 backs on the field. It could have been 22 or 23. But 2 or 3 tight ends on the field, 6.1 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. It is clearly an enormous problem that Washington had last year. Philly exposed it as much as anybody. And the solution, Anthony, was to add size. They brought in Javon Kinlaw, who every single person you ask that saw Javon Kinlaw this spring, the first thing they will tell you is that's the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life. Literally. We could not tell them the bit. And we could have Keim on, we could have Standig on, we could have Nicky on, we could have Sam on, we could have JP, Mitch, David Harris, on that list. Anybody that's on the beat, Candy, whoever. What do you think of Javon Kinlaw? Dude, that guy's the biggest human being I've seen in my life. He's massive. Massive. Eddie Goldman, who we didn't see this spring, but is in the mix now as a potential nose tackle. He's over 300 pounds, 320 pounds, to be more exact in terms of the weight he's listed at. Obviously, you have Duran back, who's a 300-pounder. Johnny Newton's a little bit undersized. But then on the edge, you have guys like Dietrich Wise, 6'5", 280 as an edge player, which is about as big as John Allen was as a defensive tackle. John said he played about 285, even though he's listed at 295, and that's inside. So I think this is a very smart approach, and this is where if you look at Washington, Anthony, last year, and you're like, oh, they gave up these big plays in the secondary, they didn't have a pass rush, blah, 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 blah. It all starts with their inability to stop the run. If you could just be in better situations, you can set yourself up for success against the pass. If you can't stop the run, your defense is DOA because now offenses are in complete and total control. Their whole playbook is open. It's too hard to stop that in the NFL. But if you can make a team one-dimensional, even if that one dimension is the pass, now all the other stuff you want to do, all the variants you want to introduce to the game as a team who wants to generate turnovers, that stuff can happen. And I actually do have some hope that they've both schematically looked at some things. There's some good quotes from Joe Witt in this John Keim piece, and personnel-wise have addressed what they need to address to have a significantly better year in this department and thus a significantly better defense.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this team try to utilize Daron Payne at edge just because we really could not, set an edge. Dante Fowler was often too small on the run that Saquon took 60 yards in the NFC title game. Is just like the first play of the game, he gets washed. So
and what no, that was not. He did not get washed. He did not do the right thing, and so like sometimes he did the right thing and it wasn't good enough because he got washed because he's too small. But there was a lot of freelancing from that dude who just would be like, I'm going to go over here. And sometimes it worked. Like, he would jump inside and make some plays, and you're like, damn, go Dante Fowler. Look at you. But on the play, first play of the NFC title game, the 60-yard Saquon touchdown, he tries a spin move. Like, his job is to set a hard edge, outside zone, or some kind of, I don't know, I can't remember exactly if it was outside zone or mid zone that bounced out that direction. But it's a zone run. His job is to set the edge, and Bobby Wagner's going to come into that hole where Saquon's going to cut things up, and he's going to make a tackle for 2 yards. And instead, Dante Fowler spins back, gets mushed right into Bobby Wagner, causes a multi-car pileup, and now all the players that are inside can't get outside. And where's Saquon go? Outside, 60 yards, house call. So, yeah, it's part too small, but it's also the thing that I like about who they brought in is especially Wise. Kinlaw we can talk about in a second, but especially Wise is just going to do his job. And I mean that in a literal sense, not as a, hey, he used to play for Bill Belichick before Bill Belichick became an American punching bag, back when, he was known as a really disciplined football coach. Like, he will just do the thing he's supposed to do, which means that Johnny Newton and Daron Payne and the guys next to him can do what they're supposed to do. It means Bobby Wagner can do what he's supposed to do, which is make tackles. It means Frankie Louvu can go shoot a gap, and he can be the freelancer, which makes him a lot more dangerous, as opposed to, hey, Frankie, read, react, play your lane. Like, no, you be the wild card, Frankie Louvu. And getting rid of Fowler while you're also getting rid of a ton of sack production will make this run defense better, and then you hope to make up the sack production by having better situations because you're better on first and second down, and you can do some fun blitz stuff on third down because it's 3rd and 9, and you don't have to worry about stopping the run on a 3rd and 3.
Yeah, and I think the additional point that you just made in terms of, bringing in guys that are going to be willing to be coached, are coming from a good culture, in a Dietrich Wise. Then you also got Jonathan Jones in the back end. But I think having those people that, are just going to be willing to do their job, I think is essential. But back to the point was, we didn't necessarily have to, we don't now with the people that we brought on, we don't have to move a Daron Payne to the edge. We have guys that are versatile enough to, play the 3 tech, or they can put them out to the 5 tech, and you put them out 7, 9, like whatever. Like, we have that much versatility on the defensive line, as opposed to, mixing and matching and seeing what we can do in order to combat the run. I mean, obviously, like, we're going to need to be able to do that if we want to win games.
The thing is, though, they can still do that stuff. Like, yes, you could just say, like, Dietrich Wise is on one side and Dorrance Armstrong's on the other, and pick 2 of the 3 defensive tackles between Newton, Kinlaw, and Payne in the middle, or you're rotating in Sheldon Day and, Eddie Goldman and, like, that, the backups. But if you want to, let's say you're going against a team that really loves to run it and they have certain stuff where they need to get to the edge. If you want to put Daron Payne on the edge, you still can, because you now have Kinlaw inside as a you're not stretching yourself as thin, right? You have Kinlaw who you can put out there on that edge and be like, he is big, strong, and physical. And sometimes he doesn't always read things correctly, but if we tell him, hey man, go out there and don't let them push you around. Don't try to penetrate. Just you wait, let them come to you, and don't move. Javon Kinlaw can do that. So it's about coaching up the talent that you have. It's about utilizing it in the best way possible from personnel and scheme standpoint. But then the other thing that I thought was interesting in Keim's piece is he talked about some of the 3 linebacker stuff that they wanted to do last year and couldn't get to because Jordan McGee got hurt in training camp. And so whether it's McGee, whether it's someone like a Dominique Hampton, that's, last year they still played a bunch of nickel against the 12 and 13 personnel stuff. And that was a problem because now you're outmatched from a man-to-man standpoint. Like, man on man, they have bigger men than you do. And you're all of a sudden getting a tight end blocking Noah Igbenogany in the nickel. And, like, that's not going to work for Noah. Well, now that guy becomes Dominique Hampton, who's a linebacker, and that's a much better matchup. But you're hoping to not lose it if they decide to pass it, because Hampton's a former safety. Hopefully he can play a little bit better in coverage. This is the hope for a guy like Kane Medrano as well, the 6th-round rookie out of UCLA, or what was he, 5th, 6th, whatever he was, rookie out of UCLA. You have these guys that are linebackers but can cover space, and you get a best of both worlds scenario. So you could either go a true base defense, with 3 real linebackers and Frankie, Bobby, and Jordan McGee, or you could go kind of a bigger nickel with a guy like Hampton playing that role. It's, small linebacker, big nickel hybrid. Or you can go true nickel with Mikey. You can go 3 safeties, put Will Harris down there. So they just have a lot more options this year. And I think most of those options we look at as better against the run than the options they had last year, which didn't work out so great when they didn't have the options at all and they were in nickel all the time. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Get your thoughts in on this. Have the Commanders done enough to beef up their defensive line, specifically to stop the Eagles? 301-230-0980. Your calls after a look at what's trending. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Toby Altizer is going to join us in a few minutes. He's over at Nats Park, where Davey Johnson has had himself an interesting couple of days. The Nationals manager said, frankly, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard a coach say over the weekend. I think Davey's a pretty smart guy, but you can't say the thing that he said because it's not true, and it's a silly thing to say as a coach. So we'll talk about that by ourselves. And actually, Anthony, I kind of want to. Well, no, you had a good question about the Commanders' D-line stuff. So I'm gonna stay on track, even though I kind of want to talk more about this Davey thing all day. We'll talk about it with Toby, and I'll unload some extra thoughts at 6:15, and then we'll get into the NBA Finals tonight. But Anthony, you had a question follow up on the Commanders D-line conversation we were just having.
Yeah, I was curious to pick your brain about whether or not you think the Commanders will deploy a single front, sort of kind of like Ron Rivera did when we had our 4 first-round draft picks. But I think also just having the guys that we brought in, the fact that Eddie can play nose but also move over if need be. Then you guys playing 3 techs, and then you have some people on the edge. Could we see, them, I guess, use the single package since we have all this versatility up front?
Yes, I definitely think that you can. I think they're, where that gets interesting. Well, a lot of thoughts. First of all, they played odd fronts last year. So odd front is exactly what you think. There's an odd number of people on the line of scrimmage, and whether that is 3 or 5, it could be 7 or 9 or 11, but really it's 3 or 5 typically, and it's how many guys you have on the line of scrimmage versus even fronts, which are typically 4, right? So last year they played more 3 down, or occasionally they'd play 4 down and 1 extra guy hanging. So, that's kind of a 4-3 odd front, right? So it's still 4 linebackers, 4 defensive ends and 3 linebackers, but you have 1 linebacker that's on the line of scrimmage. And actually they would play it more as like a 5-1. Again, it's getting a little technical, but they would have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. It's just what body types. And that was the thing about the Cinco package when they had it here was they would have 3 defensive linemen or 3 defensive tackles in Duran, John, and someone else. And then they would have the 2 edge guys in Sweat and Payne Sweat and Young, and you truly have 5 defensive linemen on the field with 1 linebacker behind it. I am curious to see if they do any of that this year. And then do they have just Bobby Wagner on the field? Do they have 5-2 and then kind of a base look like you're doing it to stop the run? So like, let's get those linebackers out there. And if we only have, 4 defensive backs on the field, then so be it. That's fine. Who are those defensive backs? Is it Will Harris and Quan Martin at safety, or do you have a bigger body back there? Is it Percy Butler back there with his speed and his ability to get downhill? So there's a lot of, I think, variations off of that. And it could very well be that like we want a package where we can get Javon, Johnny, and Duran, the 3 defensive tackles on the field together. Obviously, you could make one of those guys Eddie Goldman. You could have, if you wanted to get super big, you could put Kinlaw or Payne on the edge with Goldman as a nose tackle, and those other 2 guys is 5 techniques or however you want to line it up, and Dorrance Armstrong on the other side. Like, there's a bunch of combinations. And I think that's kind of the point is, like, will you see odd fronts? Yes. Is the Cinco or a version of a Cinco package with 5 defensive linemen out there a possibility? Absolutely. Will you see odd fronts with just 3 defensive linemen out there and then Frankie and Jordan McGee on the edge, or maybe Dorrance as a stand-up outside linebacker? Because that was the other thing. Last year they had Fowler, and they put Fowler and Frankie on the edge, and Fowler would be standing up. So technically that's a 3-down front, but you're in 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. So Jacob Martin is another wild card guy. He's a guy they acquired this offseason. So there's a lot of different possibilities, and it just kind of is what works best against the team that you're playing. And that's ultimately like what you're trying to solve if you're Joe Witt, is you want to be prepared to do all these things. This is actually what made the Belichick defenses so good over the years, is Bill said, okay, you are a team that likes to do this. This is the defense that is best on paper to go against that. We're going to make sure that we execute it on the field as well as it's drawn up on paper, no matter what it is. And so if you can have your guys ready to go in multiple fronts and understand if we're in this front against this offensive line look, these are our run responsibilities. And if this tight end comes in motion and now our gaps have shifted and these are our new, like, playing the run sounds simple. Play your gap. It's not that simple. You have to know what your gap is. And it takes smart football players to do that. But if you can have that much on the guys' plates, then I think from a personnel standpoint, that was a very long answer to say, yes, Anthony, I think they will potentially have 5 defensive linemen on the field at points this season.
I mean, it's interesting you bring up, I guess gap integrity, just because we've seen Saquon, cut back and, be gone. And that's sort of kind of the thing that would scare me about the single package. I feel as though, like, once you get past that first line of defense, it's not too much really behind
That's where it depends, right? It depends. You can, like, if you're playing nickel and there's just a bunch of little dudes back there, like, that's not going to be great. If you're playing, like, yeah, we got 5, but we still got 2 linebackers on the field. And, we've got a Quan Martin level safety who's a good tackler who takes good angles, or Will Harris, who's same thing. He'll thump you in the run game. Like, yeah, you have an extra guy. But I think what you're also counting on at that point is squeezing down those gaps so that there's not anywhere to go. You can't get out of your gap in the first place, and there's no cutback to have. There's nowhere to go. And I think that's the other big difference, right? Is like any of these things theoretically work if you execute them well. Football is a game of execution. Best laid plans, they can get, thrown out with bad execution, and you can have a horrible plan, like, oh God, it's 2-man and they're running this concept and it's designed to beat 2-man. But if your guys match the concept right and figure it out on the fly, you can overcome a bad play call. It's just how it is. That's football. Is ultimately who can make the play, who can make the adjustments on the fly to do it. And whether it's a discipline thing, whether it's a go make a play thing, like, got to have good players. And I think that's, where I land is like, I think the Commanders have pretty good players, and that's helpful. And they're smart players. So that's helpful in getting the job done. What's going on with the Nationals? They've lost 8 straight games. Their manager is saying it's not any of the coach's fault. It's always the player's responsibility, which seems like a silly thing for a coach to say. So that's not great. But there is good news. They're calling up Brady House, top pick a couple years ago. Toby Altizer's all over it. The host of our Bust and Loose Baseball podcast joins us next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're down on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. And down at Nats Park is Toby Altizer, where the Nationals are going to take on the Colorado Rockies tonight. And, Toby, that's good news because the Rockies are bad at baseball.
Yeah, well, it was good news when the Marlins were coming into town, too. They were bad at baseball, and they just got swept by them. Matter of fact, the Rockies just had their first winning series in over a year because they swept the Marlins. So you certainly hope it's a good thing, but they actually have to go out there on the field and win the games this week against the Rockies.
Okay, never mind. Anthony, you can hang up on Toby now. I don't want to talk about anything. No, Toby, were you in the room when Davey made the comments this weekend?
No, I wasn't there, but I heard from people immediately afterwards saying Davey had said some out-of-character comments, I think is the best way to put it, because generally Davey stands up for his players even when no one else will, even when the numbers aren't speaking well for them. He's always done a great job of defending his players. This is really out of character for him to kind of make those sorts of comments that really, I think what he was doing, Craig, is he was trying to stand up for his coaches, which I guess is somewhat understandable, but throwing your players under the bus in turn isn't great either.
No, and so for those that haven't heard it, Davey has asked, kind of whose fault is it that you're on this, at that time, 7-game losing streak, because these comments were Saturday, and then 8 games now with another loss on Sunday. And he does exactly what Toby just said. He says, no, it's always about the players. And it's almost like philosophically, I get what he's saying there. And then to your point, he certainly felt like he was standing up for his coaches. So now that we have a couple days here, and you were around the ballpark all day today, and other folks have been reporting, what is there something that's been happening, a disconnect between players and coaches, that he felt the need to stand up for the coaches? Was this a misguided attempt to motivate the players? What's going on here that we have landed in this very tense, bizarre, and frankly sad spot where the Nats just got swept by the Marlins, have lost 8 straight, and I don't know how else you put it other than the manager threw the players under the bus.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing, Craig. Over the last couple of years, fans have been incredibly frustrated with the results on the field, obviously, because they haven't been winning ball games. And so in turn, you're calling for the hitting coach, you're calling for the pitching coach, and it's year after year people are calling for these guys' heads. And it'd be one thing if this was a first year of these guys, but they've been around. And I think part of the reason that it's kind of run thin on a lot of people is these guys were basically up for a contract last year. They were renewed to be brought back at the end of last season around August timeframe, and people then were kind of frustrated. And so when it carries over to this year and the results on the field weren't great, but they were approaching that 500 mark, before this 8-game winning streak or losing streak, they're 3 games just below 500. So they're kind of right there. And then they go on an 8-game losing streak, and you get some of this frustration kind of boiling over, and the fan base, I feel like, just wants a pound of flesh, and understandably so, because the team has not been playing up to their standards, or really the standards that were set for this team for almost a decade, from 2012 to 2019, when they were perennially a wild card, a division champion type team. So I think some of that kind of boiled over, and Davey has seen the criticism, which is not new this year, but has been something that's happened over the last couple of years. And I think he saw an opportunity to kind of stand up for his guys, and in turn, I think inadvertently threw all of his players under the bus. And it's just out of character for Davey, because he's always done such a good job being careful what he says. And he'll occasionally say something in the media to motivate his guys. Like a week ago or so before the Mets series, he kind of had said something cryptic in terms of, hey, if some things don't change, then, maybe we'll have to make some changes. We'll have to make some adjustments if guys don't get the message and all those things. So he's already said some stuff like that to kind of get to the players earlier this year. But I think he ran into a problem where he wants to defend his guys, which a lot of people will have the frustration that they'll look at it as saying, hey, Davey just hired his friends and he's not holding them accountable. But he wanted to stand up for his coaching staff. But unfortunately for him, he ended up throwing all his players under the bus in turn. And I can't tell you what the vibe was overall. It didn't feel that off in the clubhouse when I was in there earlier today. But, you're just seeing players kind of doing their stuff going around. So I couldn't sense if something was off. But there's definitely, I think, a frustration and understanding around this team right now. And frankly, like you said to start this, the Rockies coming to town couldn't come at a better time for this ball club.
Toby Altizer, Bustin' Loose Baseball, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So, Toby, if I were to ask you like a similar version of the question that Davey was asked, to say like, "Hey, man, like what's going on? What is not working right now?" What would your answer be as to why the Nats are on this 8-game losing streak?
It's a combo of everybody. I mean, there's not a single person that's not accountable. And so, to Davey's point, the players aren't coming through in big spots. They've had so many opportunities yesterday. I think they were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Mackenzie Gore kept them in the ball game, and you're right there, and you're not able to win it. The first game of the Marlins series, you scored 9 runs, which you hadn't scored runs, it felt like, at all in this losing streak, but you scored 9. But unfortunately, Mitchell Parker and the pitching staff weren't able to turn in a good enough performance, albeit with a 2-hour rain delay mixed in there. But they end up giving up 11 runs. So it really is, I think, partially on the players, to Davey's point, saying that they have to come through. They have to go out there and perform. And ultimately, you understand this, Craig, in professional sports, it is a player-driven league, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. You know, the guys aren't out there. So I understand Davey's point on that. But for him to say it's never coaching, I can't get on board with that, because consistently this team is one of the worst base-running teams in the big leagues. And at some point, that's coaching, right? Like, you're teaching these guys. Guys are coming up. You got another debut tonight in Brady House, and hopefully he doesn't run the bases poorly, but guys coming up and making bad decisions on the base paths. And you've seen growth from some young guys, so it's not to say that there hasn't been development, there hasn't been coaching, but consistently, when I talked to Mackenzie Gore about 2 weeks ago, and he had mentioned having success at the major league level, and he's been really, really good this year and feels like he's turned a corner. And I asked him, like, hey, how do you go from being guys that are putting up decent numbers and looking like solid big leaguers to actually winning ball games at this level? And he said, we got to stop beating ourselves. And to me, that's where the issue comes in, that they beat themselves so many times, and it's unforced errors and it's problems that should be able to be fixed. And that, to me, is on the coaching staff for not being able to help these players mature into winning ball players. And so that's where I think the coaching staff comes into this. Part of it's ownership. They could have improved the baseball team. Part of it's Rizzo. You know, he needs to make better decisions in terms of some of the guys that he brings in here with the limited budget that he's given. So I think everybody has a hand in this. But to Davey's point as well, like, the players have to go out there and perform, and they haven't performed well enough during this losing streak, but I also think that the coaching staff and some of the decisions they've made haven't helped out either.
All right, Toby. So tonight, the Brady House debut. Tell us more about Brady House. What should fans know? Obviously, a top pick just a couple years ago. Like, what's he been doing in the minors? Why now? And how quickly can he make an impact at the major league level?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he can be an impact player for this team, because I think he could look good in this Rockies series, but then you go on the road to take on the Dodgers, and how will you look then? You know, the big leagues are tough. You're facing top competition night in, night out, unless you're facing the Rockies. So hopefully he can make an impact tonight, but he's someone who's a big third baseman, 6'4", 22 years old. He's still kind of filling out his frame a little bit. He's going to still get bigger, but he's a power right-handed bat. There's going to be swing and miss. He's going to strike out. That's something that's going to be a part of his game, but hopefully in there you get some doubles, you get some homers, and you get some real power added to this lineup, which is huge because they need power, but specifically they need power from the right-handed side because this lineup is super lefty heavy. And so having a power right-handed bat, especially against the lefty tonight who they're going to face in the Rockies for Palmquist, I think they need that. He's going to be an upgrade defensively at third base over Jose Tena, who was sent down in his stead to Rochester. I think he's going to be I don't know that he's going to be great defensively right away, but they've frankly been getting below average defensive play at third base since Paul DeJong went down. So I think they'll get average to potentially above average third base play there from Brady House, and hopefully he provides a nice pop. He's been crushing the minor leagues this year. He's hitting over 300 in AAA, OPS over 850, 13 homers on the year. So he's been crushing the ball down in AAA. Now it's about seeing this carry over into the big leagues. Last year, he at one point was a top 100 prospect for this team and someone that was really highly thought of. Last year was a very disappointing year overall. But now when you look at, for him, a big part of his career has been health. When he's been healthy in the 3 or 4 years, a majority of them have been more along the lines of what we've seen this year, where it's a 280, 290. In this case, it's a 300 average, driving the ball all over the place with some power, versus last year feels like the anomaly where he struggled a little bit. So hopefully he can come to the big league level, make the adjustments necessary. But I think they need a right-handed power bat, and that's hopefully what he can provide.
So best case scenario, House plays well, Rockies rocky, Nationals get a couple of wins here. This thing all peters out. The Davey thing, we look back in a month and it's like, yeah, that was weird. I wonder who you know what in his Cheerios that morning, right? I was like, what word can I say here that I'm allowed to say on the radio? But also, that's just a gross. It's a gross. What's the word? That not metaphor, but it's a gross saying. But people know it. This is going downhill quickly. This is like the Nats' last 8 games, Toby. The point is, hopefully Brady House plays well, and this Davey thing, we look back and we're like, that was weird. If it doesn't, put the House thing aside, if the Nats do not turn this around, and we're talking they lose 5 of their next 8 games type of deal, 8 of their next 10, is Davey's job at this point safe with where they are in the rebuild and what the learners want to do and where Rizzo is? Just feels like it's been a noisy year, and maybe something does need to change, or is this group solidly together, and maybe they'll visit that at the end of the season?
I don't know how anybody that's on the coaching staff can look at what's happened over the last week and a half and feel safe. I don't know that at this moment I wouldn't think that they're going to fire Davey, but, talk to me in 4 days and we'll see what happens with the Rockies series. If they lose 3 or 4 to the Rockies, I don't see how some change isn't made. You got to shake up the clubhouse and figure some things out. And, if that's ultimately Davey, if that's Darnell Coles, the hitting coach, Jim Hickey, the pitching coach, Ricky Gutierrez, the third base coach, whatever it is, they would have to make some sort of change because clearly it's not working. And the thing that I think is interesting about this, Craig, is they could very well and probably likely will win 3 or 4 of this series, hopefully. And if that's the case, people will immediately feel like they can move on. But there's another stretch coming up where they could suddenly find themselves in a hole once again, where they go out to L.A., they go to San Diego, 2 really, really good teams in the NL West. They have a little bit of a layup or a little bit easier competition against the Angels, but you just lost a series to the Marlins, and the Angels are better than the Marlins. And so you got a 3-series West Coast road trip where realistically you could go 2-7 there, or maybe even worse, and it wouldn't be all that surprising. And then you come home to one of the best teams in the league in the Detroit Tigers to begin the month of July, and then the Red Sox come to town for the 4th of July series. And, I mean, that's 15 games right there where I don't think it would be all that surprising if they continue to play the way that they've played, where they might win 3 or 4 against the Rockies, but then they could go, 4-11, 5-10, and it wouldn't be all that surprising if it were even a little bit worse than that. So they have to figure stuff out quickly. I don't think you can even look at saying, hey, they win this Rocky series and all is kumbaya again with Davey and the team. I think you really got to get to the All-Star break before we start feeling like, oh, okay, they're out of the woods with this whole situation, because even if they win here, they could end up right back in a losing streak where people are having similar sentiments once again, even though they won some games against the Rockies.
All right, much more on this on the Bustin' Loose Baseball podcast. It's Toby, it's Grant Paulson. Toby's at the ballpark tonight, so check out his social media feeds for more on tonight's game against the Rockies, and then you'll hear him on 106.7 The Fan, and, of course, the Bustin' Loose Baseball podcast over the next couple of days talking about whatever happens. Toby, appreciate your time as always, sir, and enjoy the game tonight.
Always great, Craig. See you.
All right, see you, buddy. That's Toby Altizer with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, I got a couple thoughts I want to tack on. We preview the NBA Finals at 6:30. But first, the latest in the world of women's sports presented to you by Wawa. Chicken, how you want it, at Wawa, with customizable roasted and crispy chicken sandwich.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. NBA Finals preview coming at you in just a few minutes. But first, a few follow-up thoughts on our conversation with Toby Altizer and what Davey Martinez said over the weekend. And it's one of the more wild things, try to be nice about it, but frankly, to be clear, I don't think Davey Martinez is dumb, right? Davey Martinez is a smart guy. He's been around a long time. And when managers in baseball talk multiple times per day, they might talk more than any other coach in sports. They do, they play 162 times a year. They talk typically pregame and postgame. They're given other interviews. Like, Davey Martinez doesn't have a laundry list of dumb things he said over the years. So that is his track record going in, and he's also in the middle of an incredibly frustrating stretch. And my guess is there's more than we know here as of now. We'll see if reporters can uncover more of why he was so particularly frustrated at this time. But the correct answer always, both substantively and politically, when you are asked about criticism as a coach or a player or an executive, is it's all our fault. It's all of us. And the way I would answer a question like that if I was Davey is it's everybody. We got to coach better. Players are going to play better, but those things are related. And if you're a coach, it's on you to take the blame. Like, this is where the political maybe, bends a little bit from the reality. Like, eventually guys got to play. Like, if Davey told a reporter privately or told his buddy privately, like, dog, these guys just aren't that good at baseball. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I would get that. But mentally to stay in it, mentally to make sure that you're doing everything you can, and to bite the bullet politically. And I remember Sean McVay telling me this earlier, or in my career. And he said, man, if you ask me, especially at the podium, you ask me what happens when things go well, it's always going to be the players. When things go wrong, it's always going to be my fault. And I was like, that's good to know, Sean. I now know not to ask you those questions. And so, if Sean called a play and it was a good play and players messed it up, then he's looking at it like, yeah, I didn't set him up well there. Because maybe, even though it's the right play based off the situation, did you teach it well enough? Did you prepare them well enough that they execute it? Because as a coach, that's got to be your mentality. As a coach, your mentality is, if the players mess it up, what did I not do that they weren't in a position to succeed? And the answer, truthfully, might not be nothing. But also, as a player, to flip side this real quick, as a player, hey, I got to go make a play. Like, ultimately, yeah, coach has got to tell me. And so unless I'm doing exactly what he said and it's the exact wrong thing, it's my fault. I got to go make the play. But if everyone keeps the mentality, if you're an executive, hey, did we give the coach what they need? Did we give the players the resources? If every single part of your organization is always like, what can I do better? That's how you win. And that's how you create a better culture. It's how people feel supported. It's how you find out just how good you are. And you might find out at the end of the year, as good as you are isn't good enough. And you need different players. You need more talent. That's sports. Not everyone can win. By nature, the entire sport goes 500 on average because every game has a winner and every game has a loser. But in baseball, it's probably more true to what Davey is saying, to be fair to him. Like, it's not like there's strategy. Hit the ball. Hit them where they ain't. Go. No coach is preaching like, hey, hit it exactly two guys. Like, sure, you could say we're going to try to take this guy the other way. We're trying to pull a little bit on this guy. You can obviously call for more base running aggression or not. You can call bunts or not. Like, there are strategic choices, but baseball is the ultimate game of execution. How well does a pitcher execute the pitch? Does the batter make solid contact? And then where does the ball land? But to pretend like the coaching doesn't impact that. How you help a guy focus. What is he looking for? Was the scouting report good enough? Did you prepare them mentally? Did you notice that maybe that guy's dragging and needed a day off? Like, there's a million ways in which how you coach affects the player's ability to do their job. That's literally what coaching is. As a fitness coach, who has people doing a sport that like is not getting them paid millions of dollars. If my athletes don't do what they need to do, the first thing I do is ask myself, did I mess it up for them? The answer might be yes. The answer is probably not. Like, we're not talking about elite athletes that I'm working with here. I mean, they're great. Love them as people, but like they're not making millions. And even if they were not making the thousands they could make in the sport. So chances are they probably goofed up something. Okay, fine. How do we get better the next time? So that next time we together as a team make sure you're prepared. That's what coaching is. And I think that's why that bothers me so much from Davey. It's just to go, look, man, you're a baseball manager has less impact on his team than any other head coaching position in sports. It's the nature of baseball. But to say it's all about the players belies your responsibility and part of your very little responsibility is to try to shield the players from some of the scrutiny so that they can be in their best mindset. And maybe he, in the moment, I think the thing that I think is important here is that read to me like he was trying to protect his coaches and that whether it's media scrutiny and he thought his coaches were under fire, maybe the front office has been on him about his coaches, maybe there's been disagreements between players and coaches and he thinks it's the coaches are right, so he's standing up for his staff. Maybe it's that, and he went too far with it innocently, and in doing so protected the players. And that's something that's going to have to be reported out. But at the end of the day, you can't do what he did. You can't say it's not my responsibility, it's not our responsibility, it's on the players. Your job is to get them ready. And that's why this is a problem. It's why he can't do it. And it's the kind of thing that does, I think, have ripple effects in a locker room and a clubhouse. And so we'll see if there is, or if the Nats just, get lucky here and get a little confidence going against the Rockies and turn things around. They couldn't against the Marlins, so that doesn't exactly bode well. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, NBA Finals, Game 5. What's got to change for Indiana to steal another one on the road after giving up home court back in Game 4? Game 5 in OKC tonight. We're talking about it next. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Oh, we got some good things for real things today. I've sent Anthony a lot of Instagram reels in breaks today.
There is a lot of good stuff.
What's your favorite one?
My favorite one to discuss, probably the Dawn is my favorite one because it's hilarious.
It's really funny.
I'm interested. I'm interested to see how you would do in that challenge.
Tell you, better than Dawn. Not great.
Okay.
Not great. I think I don't know how good that one is without the pictures. I think the Steph Curry, D'Angelo Russell one is fascinating. And it's especially fascinating in terms of what we're about to talk about, which is Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. It's in Oklahoma City, where obviously the teams split the first 2 games of this series. They then split in Indianapolis, and that means we're tied at 2 going into tonight. The game certainly turned in the fourth quarter as it got a little chippier. SGA draws some fouls. They get some switches. And to me, that's kind of one of the things that I'm really interested in tonight. It was funny listening to Bill Simmons talk about this because he and Zach Lowe did a home and home after Game 3 and Game 4, where they did Bill's pod right after the Game 3, and then Game 4. So in listening to Lowe, I also got Simmons. And he's like, I just think Oklahoma City solved it. Like they just, they this 2-man game between SGA and whoever's got Neesmith on him, especially if it's J-Dub, like they just get the switch and then SGA can go. I'm like, Bill, very, very smart basketball historian. Arguably your greatest strength is basketball history. Bill Simmons. You think Rick Carlisle's not going to have an answer in 3 days? Come on, Bill. What are we doing?
What if he doesn't? What if he believes in Neesmith?
Then I trust Rick Carlisle to get Aaron Neesmith in a much better place mentally, and for he and Nembhard to hype him up and get him mentally prepared to say, all right, fine. Aaron Neesmith, man who shut down Jalen Brunson in the last round, really good defender most nights. SGA seems to have your number, but we trust you. We have faith in you. Go play confidently. Quit trying to use your hands. Use your feet. Be strong. Challenge smartly. And this to me is the biggest thing. Because this is the thing. Neesmith has done a decent job on SGA until he does the dumbest thing that NBA defenders, and frankly defenders at all levels, do. Force a guy into a tough shot and live with it. He quit going for blocks on SGA's shot. He's not Jalen Brunson. He's not 5'11". You're not blocking his shot. Challenge it without fouling. Live with forcing him into a tough shot, knowing he will hit some of them. Because there's a couple of those fouls the other night where the one that was the worst was the one that happened with 0.3 on the shot clock. And you force him into a turning over the wrong shoulder fadeaway that he has almost no chance of hitting. And you foul him instead of just seeing like hands straight up. I'm not even going to jump. We're not going to worry about it. Let's go rebound. If Neesmith can make, frankly, even that adjustment, I think that he's probably okay. And so, could they have another solution? Absolutely. Hey, we're going to go under certain stuff. We're going to make sure try to switch, or we're going to pre-switch some stuff so that they don't get the switch that they want. Like, whatever it is, they can figure out a tactical solution if they want to, or they need to get Neesmith better prepared to guard SGA, and that might be the play tonight. But to think that you're just going to run one simple pull action and unlock the entire series against Rick Carlisle, hell no. Ain't no way. I felt due to highly unlikely. There. Now it was less declarative. Now it was less hot takey. That was more me. Highly unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just easier said than done. Again, I think throughout the playoffs, Neesmith, he's guarded Jalen Brunson. He's guarded SGA. And it's been the same thing in both series. Like, I just don't think he's as disciplined as Andrew Nembhard has been, when he's had to check Jalen Brunson and SGA. So you're saying like it's you're saying it that, Rick Carlisle will have a solution for it and Neesmith will play better. He'll be more sound, but he just hasn't done it. And we would have thought, we know Jalen Brunson, he's deliberately trying to draw fouls. Shea, on the other hand, he might not be trying to draw the fouls. He just catches you in a bad and awkward position. So I think, I'm interested to see like what they do to combat it, but the best thing is going to be not to have Neesmith on SGA in the fourth quarter, just because
Of course.
it just hasn't worked at all.
Of course. And ideally, you're able to keep him off, and Nembhard can stay on, and you can navigate the switches or hedge and that give Nembhard time to get around. Like, it's not like he's Steph Curry. Forcing him 30 feet from the basket is less risky, right? You don't want him to drive. So the idea of like, okay, well, Aaron Neesmith is going to hedge this screen really hard, let Nembhard recover, and then you need to have everyone else on a string. Like, that's a possibility. Because Neesmith has done a decent job this series on J-Dub, but he's also fouled out twice in the series. So there's a lot there. I think Indiana needs a better game for Mathurin. Obviously, didn't have a great game and had those really dumb fouls late. But if I'm Indiana, I look at the last game and say, if we just hit some open shots that we have hit, we're fine. We're fine. Like, we got a couple things we got to clean up. We got to keep our hands out the cookie jar. But we are a team that wears people down. And to their credit, they're young and they seem to have found a second wind. Okay, do it again. Do it again. As this series gets later and later and later, does it benefit Indiana because of the 94 feet pressure that they put on guys like SGA and J-Dub and everyone who's handling the ball? I think the other part of this is it's almost like Lou Dort came out at halftime. This was a good Simmons take. He was like, Lou Dort came out at halftime and was like, or actually maybe Zach said this. Dort came out at halftime and said, the thing you've been doing to our guy that sucks, I'm going to do it to your guy. And all of a sudden he's picking up Halliburton 94 feet. So to me, the bigger challenge is, can Indiana unlock Halliburton? And he's still running off a million screens, and they're doing all that stuff. But he's got to be super aggressive tonight. I genuinely think it comes down to this. If Tyrese Halliburton scores 25 or more points tonight, I think the Pacers have a really good chance to win. If he doesn't, I don't think they have much of a chance to win. And he has got to be, again, not aggressive. He's got to be aggressive to score. If he does that, they're a different team. And the numbers back that up. Tim Bontempts talked about it had a great stat earlier when he joined us at 5 o'clock. If you missed that, check out the Hoffman Show podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. But they don't lose when he scores big, has big games in the playoffs. Problem is, most of that's come at home. And to be a true superstar, to lean into the rhetoric, you got to do it on the road too. Like, that's the thing that makes SGA. MVP SGA, I just dropped 35, including a monster fourth quarter on the road. LeBron, doesn't matter where and when. Curry, what was it, Game 4 in Boston a couple years ago, where he went nuclear in the finals and was like, series over. That's what they need from Halliburton tonight. That is what the moment demands from Halliburton tonight. He doesn't have to do it like Curry, like LeBron, and get 40, but he's got to get 25 and 10. And if he does that, I think Indiana can win this, and then they're going back home for Game 6 with all the pressure on OKC.
Yeah, like, I think dating back to the regular season, I think the Pacers are like 34, 35, and 4. They rarely lose when he has 20 points. So, and I don't think they've lost this postseason when he's had 20 points. So, I think that's very important. But also, I think the turnover aspect of things is also important. We saw this guy go like 3 straight games against the Knicks without a turnover, and the Thunder are just, getting under his skin. Like, he's turning the ball over left and right. He had 5 last game. So I think also just the ball security, not being careless with it, I think it's also important because, again, those 5 turnovers, you negate those, it's a different ball game if you score.
For sure. Last thing I'll say real quick, the pace of this game. Indiana's got to get it going, and that's typically not what happens the later a series goes. These two teams at this point know every trick, they know every set, they know everything the other one is trying to do. And those games, because you know so much, each possession goes deeper in the shot clock. You have fewer possessions. Then it gets real grimy and slow. If Indiana can keep up the pace and keep up the pressure, totally different type of game. Again, in this postseason, they are, I think, 12-1 when they score 110. They are 0-6 when they don't. So can Indiana get some easy buckets in transition, Toppin, Siakam, Halliburton, etc., and keep the pace high in general, running off of makes, even off dead ball situations, get the ball and go as fast as you can. There is something to be said for how high scoring or not this game is tonight for the Indiana Pacers. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Up next, though, real things real people said into real microphones. the Hoffman Show, Final Five here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. All right, Anthony, tomorrow on the show, it's a Vibe Check Tuesday. Do we know what we're vibe checking tomorrow?
Not quite yet. Not quite yet.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think we're getting to the portion of the summer of the year where,
it's kind of anything goes.
Yeah, we figure things out on the fly,
Yeah. Well, not on the fly.
Well, not on the fly, but
the
it's
day
a little
of.
more day of.
We will have some story time with Anthony tomorrow because we didn't have time to do it today. Anthony took his first ever train trip this weekend.
Yep.
He also got styled this weekend, so I want to know the details of your weekend.
Craig, I got some stuff for you.
I'm excited for that. Other than that, tomorrow we'll review Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Wednesday we'll do a little NBA draft. That'll be 1 week until the first round on Wednesday. So we got some stuff planned longitudinally this week, but don't have much to tell you tomorrow. But other than if you like the show, you'll probably like the show because it'll be me and it'll be Anthony. So there's that. All right.
I think that gets the people going.
Probably very provocative. We did it in reverse, but we did it. It's time for Real Things, Real People Said to Real Microphones. We'll do that tomorrow, too. Come on, button.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, do we do the funny one or the D-Lo one?
The Bucks one is also funny too.
That's what I'm saying. Do we do the Bucks one or the D-Lo one?
I like Bucks first, then D-Lo.
Okay, let's see if we can get them both in. It's Father's Day this weekend. Hope all the dads out there had a great Father's Day. And the Bucks had two dads in their wide receiver room, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and so they had to get them the ultimate dad shoe.
All right, happy Father's Day, guys.
Oh,
thank you.
Excellent
Appreciate
news.
y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
See what we got.
What we got here? Uh-oh.
New shoes?
Always love a Nike box.
Absolutely.
Are these the Monarchs?
The Monarchs.
Damn.
Absolutely. Nah, I heard these are comfy for real.
I rock them too.
I damn sure like these.
You gonna wear these
I'm gonna go full dad mode.
13 or 14?
13.
I got 14s. Yeah.
I'm gonna rock them for sure.
No, not the generics.
With the
Got to get him socks too.
The crew size.
The generics. In high school, in middle school, I would be so happy to get a pair of these just like this, like no matter what. Now I rock the elite socks. Appreciate y'all so much. Thank you.
Man, let me tell you.
Are you gonna put them on?
Yeah. I'm gonna wear
my boy.
I'm gonna wear the shoes out the stove. Oh, these. Sure, I'll be right back. I gotta pick up my son real quick. Nah, they are kind of comfy on the low.
Hey, we make them look clean though.
They are kind of
Nah, we can make them look clean.
I'm gonna rock these at
Match the
walkthrough.
uniforms too.
I'm definitely gonna rock them at walkthrough.
They
They
kind
got
of do
these,
go
though.
with the Bucks uniform.
Ready to go. Ace gonna love these. He'll pick them up. Yeah. Wear them around the crib.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
make my legs look extra skinny.
Nah, they so bulky.
Not the extra skinny legs.
Man, chicken legs. That's what he got.
Those chicken legs gonna get him to the Hall of Fame. So
Yeah.
worked out. Those are. Thing is, like, it was like a black and red colorway. They didn't look that. Am I old, or did they not look that
Craig,
bad, or is it because it's Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and they're cool and they were in football uniforms?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I've only seen the blue and white.
Yeah.
What are they called again? Something Monarchs?
Monarchs. Yeah, they're
I've only seen the blue and white ones. Because
Yeah.
my high school basketball coach, freshman year, wore them every day.
Of course he did.
Practice, game, auditions, tryouts. Like, it didn't matter. Like, he was in them. They were like all-purpose shoes for him. So I guess they are comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that they're comfortable. But the thing is, like, can you get comfort and style? And I feel like that colorway is not nearly as bad as the all white or the blue and white.
You should get some.
I mean, I think I gotta have a kid.
And dude, that's gonna be my gift to you when you have your first kid.
Deal. Done. Not happening soon. It's the Hoffman Show, and we'll see you tomorrow.